I was on a high after completing our latest video on healthy meal prep. The numbers were rolling in, and I could practically hear the applause from our followers as they tuned in to our content. Sophie and I had built this amazing life as lifestyle bloggers, and everything felt perfect, until it didn't. It was a Friday evening when I decided to surprise Sophie at the gym. I pulled up to the parking lot, excitement bubbling in my chest. I envisioned us celebrating a successful week over dinner later. But as I entered the gym, that excitement turned into a knot of dread. I walked toward the back, where the group training sessions were held, and that's when I saw them. Sophie, laughing, her hair glistening under the gym lights, and there was Max, our fitness trainer, his hand resting casually on her lower back. I froze, my heart racing as I took in the scene. They were too close, their laughter too intimate. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What was supposed to be a joyful evening had turned into a nightmare. I turned to leave, my mind racing. I had to gather my thoughts before confronting her. In the car, I tried to process what I'd seen. Had I misread the situation? Maybe they were just friends? But deep down, I knew that look in Sophie's eyes, the way she sparkled when she laughed with him, was different. It hit me like a brick, she was cheating on me. After a sleepless night, I made my way to the gym the next morning, my resolve hardening. I couldn't confront Sophie without evidence, I needed to know for sure. I spent the day watching her interactions, and each moment only confirmed my worst fears. The laughter, the lingering touches, it was all there. By the time I got home, my mind was made up. I would confront her, but first, I needed a plan. I had to hit back, not just for myself but for the countless people who followed our journey. They needed to know the truth. That evening, as Sophie walked through the door, I could barely look at her. I wanted to scream, to rage, but I had to stay composed. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, her voice bright and carefree. "It was fine," I replied, my heart racing. "We need to talk." Her smile faded, and I could see the worry creep into her eyes. "What's wrong? Let's sit down." The gravity of the moment weighed heavily between us as we moved to the living room. I took a deep breath, knowing this conversation would change everything. "I saw you with Max yesterday at the gym," I said, my voice steady. "I saw how you looked at him." Sophie's face drained of color. "Ryan, I can explain." "Explain what?" "How you've been cheating on me." I interrupted, the anger spilling over. "I've built my life around us, and you." "Stop," she exclaimed, tears welling in her eyes. "It's not what you think." But the damage was done. I couldn't hear her excuses, I was already plotting my revenge. I envisioned a video that would expose her betrayal to the world, one that would shatter the facade of our perfect life and reveal the truth behind the scenes. I could feel the weight of my decision settling in. But I was resolved. It was time to take control of my narrative. I would make her pay for this betrayal, and in doing so, I would reclaim my power. As the night wore on, I crafted my plan. I would reveal her betrayal, not just for myself, but for everyone who had looked up to us. This was just the beginning. The following day felt like a blur, a haze of emotions and thoughts swirling in my mind. I couldn't focus on anything but the confrontation that lay ahead. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting shadows across our living room, I knew it was time. Sophie arrived home later than usual, her laughter echoing from the front door as she chatted with someone on the phone. My stomach twisted. How could she be so carefree after what I'd seen? I braced myself, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Hey, Ryan," she called out, her voice bright. "I hope you're hungry, I made dinner." I forced a smile. "Yeah, about that." We sat at the dinner table, the delicious aroma wafting around us. But I felt like I was choking on the tension. Sophie dished out the food, her smile unwavering, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. As she took a bite, I finally spoke up. "Sophie, we need to talk about Max." Her fork clattered against the plate, and for a moment, I thought I saw panic flicker across her face. "What about him?" I leaned in, my heart racing. "I saw you two at the gym. You were way too close." She blinked, then laughed nervously. "Oh, come on, we're just friends. You know how we are at the gym. It's all about motivation." "Motivation?" I interrupted, anger flaring. "You were laughing, touching him like it meant something. Don't lie to me." Her facade began to crack. "Ryan, please, you're overreacting. It was just a moment." "Just a moment?" I shot back. "This isn't just a moment, Sophie. This is our life." Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of guilt, but I pushed it aside. "You need to be honest with me." Is there something going on between you two? For a brief moment, she looked lost. I don't know what to say. That's not an answer, I snapped. If you care about us at all, you'll tell me the truth. Sophie took a shaky breath, her voice barely a whisper. Okay, yes, we've been spending time together, but it's not what you think. I'm confused. Her admission hit me like a punch. Confused? I echoed, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. You're confused about our marriage? About our life together? I never meant for it to go this far. She cried, her tears spilling over. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you. The anger I felt morphed into something colder. You've already hurt me, Sophie. I deserve better than this. The gravity of my words hung in the air. I watched as realization dawned on her, and I could see the panic set in. Ryan, please, let's talk about this. We can fix it. But it was too late. The idea of reconciliation felt hollow. I couldn't just let it go. I needed to expose the truth. No, Sophie. This isn't something we can fix. I'm done with the lies. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, and walked toward the living room. Sophie followed, desperation in her voice. Ryan, wait, what are you going to do? I turned to face her, my heart pounding. I'm going to show the world who you really are. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. You wouldn't, you can't, but I was already resolute. I had to take control, to turn the pain into power. I would expose her betrayal. And in doing so, I would reclaim my narrative. As I reached for my phone, I could feel Sophie's eyes burning into my back, pleading for me to reconsider. But there was no turning back now. The plan was in motion, and the world was about to learn the truth. The weight of my decision hung heavy in the air as I stood there, phone in hand, ready to unleash the truth. I needed to be strategic about this. I couldn't just throw it all out there without a plan. I sat down at my desk, my mind racing with ideas. I pulled up our social media accounts, where Sophie and I had shared our lives with thousands of followers. This was where the exposure would hit hardest. I knew I needed to craft a video that would not only reveal her betrayal but also resonate with our audience. I wanted them to understand the reality behind the glossy images we'd portrayed. First, I made a list of what I wanted to include. I would discuss our relationship, how we built our brand together, the late nights editing videos, the countless trips we took to inspire our followers. I would frame it all in the context of trust, highlighting how betrayal shattered that foundation. But I couldn't just speak from pain, I had to show evidence. That meant I needed screenshots of Sophie's interactions with Max, text messages, social media exchanges, anything that would serve as proof of her infidelity. I started digging through her phone records, the guilt creeping in with each tap on the screen. Did I really want to invade her privacy like this? But I shook off the doubt. She had crossed a line, and I had to take control. As I pieced together the evidence, my anger surged anew. Each message I found was a dagger to my heart, but I knew this was necessary. I'd document everything, and when I put it all together, it would be unassailable. I spent hours writing a script, crafting my narrative carefully. I wanted to evoke empathy, to make them understand the emotional toll of betrayal. This is about cleansing from toxic relationships, I would say. It's about taking back your life when someone you love betrays your trust. Quote. The plan started to take shape in my mind, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I'd filmed the video the next day, and by the time it was up, Sophie's world would come crashing down around her. As the night wore on, I found myself going through our past videos, memories of happier times. There we were, smiling at the camera, talking about healthy living, our hopes and dreams. The contrast was jarring. How could she have faked such joy while deceiving me? When I finally crawled into bed, sleep eluded me. I kept replaying the scenes from the gym, the laughter, the intimacy. I knew I had to be careful, to strike the right balance between revealing the truth and not completely destroying the person I once loved. The next morning, I woke up with a new sense of determination. Today was the day I'd take the first step in my plan. I set up the camera in our living room, making sure the lighting was perfect. I practiced my lines, pacing back and forth, my heart racing with each rehearsal. As I hit record, I could feel the weight of what I was about to do. But I also felt empowered. I was reclaiming my story. I focused on the camera, envisioning our followers, the people who had supported us through thick and thin. Hey everyone, I began, my voice steady but tinged with emotion. Today, I want to talk about something personal, something that affects all of us. I took a deep breath, knowing this was just the beginning. I was ready to reveal the truth, to share my side of the story. The plan was in motion, and there was no turning back. With the camera rolling, I felt a mix of anxiety and resolve coursing through me. The living room, usually filled with laughter and light, now felt like a battleground. I had set the scene carefully, adjusting the lighting and framing to create an intimate atmosphere. This was not just another video, this was a declaration of war against the betrayal that had shattered my world. "Hey everyone," I started, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Today, I want to talk about something personal, something that affects all of us." I paused, searching for the right words, the right tone. This wasn't just about me, it was about anyone who had ever felt deceived by someone they loved. I built my life around sharing positivity, health, and the journey of being in a relationship with Sophie, I continued, my heart pounding. But lately, I've discovered that the foundation of that relationship has been shaken. I saw something that changed everything. I glanced at the camera, imagining our followers, the supportive comments that flooded in after each video. I needed them to understand. Trust is everything in a relationship, and when that trust is broken, it's devastating. As I spoke, I felt my anger rising. It fueled my words, driving home the reality of what had happened. I began to describe the scene I witnessed at the gym, the laughter, the way Sophie looked at Max. It was too close, too intimate. I couldn't ignore it. My gut told me something was off. And I had to confront her. I took a deep breath, knowing this was the moment to reveal the evidence. "I've gathered some messages that illustrate what's been happening behind the scenes," I said, my voice steady. I pulled up screenshots on my phone, displaying them on the screen for everyone to see. "This is Sophie with Max, and it's not just friendly. It's betrayal." As I shared the messages, I felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I was exposing the truth, but I was also tearing down the facade of our life together. Each message I revealed felt like a dagger in my heart, but I had to keep going. I had to show the reality of the situation. "Betrayal isn't just about cheating," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "It's about the lies we tell ourselves and each other. It's about the trust that gets eroded over time." I took a moment to collect myself, glancing at the camera with raw honesty. I'm sharing this not just to hurt Sophie, but to show others that they deserve better. If you find yourself in a toxic relationship, it's time to cleanse from it. You deserve honesty, respect, and love. As I wrapped up the video, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Thank you for listening. I hope this message resonates with you. Remember, you're not alone. I stopped the recording and sat back, breathing heavily. I had done it. I had shared my truth. But as the adrenaline faded, a wave of uncertainty washed over me. What would Sophie think? How would our followers react? After a few moments of reflection, I decided to upload the video. I wanted it out there, to expose the reality of what was happening. As I clicked the upload button, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursed through me. I spent the rest of the day nervously refreshing the page, waiting for comments and reactions. Would people support me? Would they stand by Sophie? My heart raced with each new notification. As the first comments began to roll in, I felt a sense of solidarity from our followers. "Stay strong, Ryan," one read. "You deserve better." Another commented, "Thank you for being brave and sharing this." But just as I began to feel a sense of relief, the door swung open. Sophie walked in, her face pale as she took in the situation. The tension in the room escalated, and I knew the confrontation wasn't over. Sophie stood in the doorway, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief. The weight of what I had just done hung in the air like a thick fog, and I could feel the tension crackling between us. I had shared our truth with the world, and now she was here to face the aftermath. "Ryan, what have you done?" Her voice trembled, and I could see the tears pooling in her eyes. It was a stark contrast to the confident, vibrant woman I had known, and for a brief moment, I felt a twinge of regret. But I quickly pushed that aside. This was about holding her accountable for her actions. "I did what I had to do," I replied, my voice firm. "You had your chance to be honest with me. Instead, you chose to betray me." She stepped further into the room, her hands trembling at her sides. "I can explain. You don't understand what you're doing." I crossed my arms, standing my ground. "No, Sophie. You're the one who doesn't understand. You destroyed the trust we built. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about everyone who looks up to us." Her face flushed with anger. "You think this is how you solve things? By airing our dirty laundry in public? Yes, I shot back, my emotions boiling over. You took it there when you decided to cheat on me. You didn't think about our relationship, our brand, or our followers when you were laughing with Max. Sophie's voice turned pleading. Please, just let me explain. It wasn't like that. Max is just what? A friend? A fitness trainer? You can't deny what I saw. I stepped closer, the anger pulsing through me. I saw the way you looked at him. It wasn't just friendly banter. You made a choice, and now you have to face the consequences. She fell silent, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of realization cross her face. I messed up, Ryan. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. It was complicated. Complicated? I scoffed. That's your excuse? You could have talked to me. We could have worked through whatever it was. But you chose the easy way out. The tears streamed down her face, and I felt a pang of guilt, but I quickly brushed it aside. I couldn't let my compassion override the need for accountability. I loved you, Sophie. I thought we were building something real, I continued, my voice softer but firm. But now I see how easily you could throw it all away. Do you realize how many people looked up to us? How many believed in our message? She opened her mouth to speak, but the words seemed to fail her. I thought we were perfect too, she finally whispered. I thought we were happy. Happy people don't cheat, I replied, my voice steadier now. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. I turned away, needing a moment to collect my thoughts. This confrontation was tearing me apart. But I had to stay focused. I had exposed her betrayal, and now it was time for her to reckon with the fallout. Ryan, please, she said, her voice cracking. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. Anything? I turned back to her, skepticism written all over my face. How can I trust you again? You've broken that trust beyond repair. As we stood there, the silence between us felt deafening. The reality of what had just happened settled in. Our relationship was irrevocably changed. I had taken a stand, but at what cost? I need time to think, I finally said, my voice quiet but resolute. This isn't something we can just fix overnight. Sophie nodded, tears still streaming down her face. I understand. I never wanted to hurt you. Yet here we are, I replied, my heart heavy. It's time for both of us to face the truth. I hope you really reflect on what you've done. As she walked away, the weight of the confrontation lingered in the air. I had opened a door that couldn't be closed. And now I had to navigate the fallout of my decision. The next few days felt like a whirlwind. After the video went live, our lives were turned upside down. Notifications poured in, the comments ranging from supportive to vitriolic. My phone buzzed incessantly, each vibration a reminder of the storm I had unleashed. As I scrolled through the reactions, a wave of emotion washed over me. Some followers praised my bravery for exposing the truth, while others condemned me for airing our personal struggles in public. You should have worked it out privately, one comment read. You're just as bad as she is. Another chimed in, but beneath the chaos, there was a glimmer of solidarity. Many shared their own stories of betrayal, thanking me for bringing the issue to light. It felt surreal to realize that my pain had resonated with so many people. Sophie, on the other hand, was reeling from the backlash. I watched as her once vibrant social media presence crumbled. Her followers began to unfollow her in droves. And brand partnerships that once poured money into our accounts started to vanish. It was painful to witness, but I couldn't allow myself to feel pity. One evening, while I was reviewing comments, I received a text from Sophie. Can we talk? It read. I hesitated, my mind racing with a mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut on any conversation. I had exposed her betrayal for a reason. But another part of me, the part that once loved her deeply, felt a twinge of curiosity. I replied, what do you want to talk about? Just everything. Please, I need to explain myself better. I took a deep breath, weighing my options. Fine, but I'm not making any promises. We agreed to meet at a small cafe, a neutral ground where we had shared so many memories. As I walked in, the familiar scent of coffee hit me, but it felt different now, tainted by the reality of our situation. Sophie was already seated, her eyes red from crying. I felt a mix of anger and sympathy as I approached her. So, what do you have to say? I asked, taking a seat across from her. She glanced down at her hands, visibly shaken. I've had some time to think, Ryan. I realize now how selfish I've been. I should have never let it get that far. Then why did you? I shot back, my frustration bubbling to the surface. You could have come to me. We could have worked through it together. I was scared, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, I replied, my heart racing. You thought you could keep it a secret and it wouldn't affect us? You've shattered my trust, Sophie. Tears welled in her eyes again. I know, and I can't change the past. All I can do is ask for your forgiveness. I'm so sorry. I leaned back, crossing my arms as I processed her words. Apologies aren't enough anymore. You've turned our lives upside down for your own selfish reasons. How can I believe that you won't do it again? I can prove it to you. She insisted, her voice gaining some strength. I'll cut ties with Max. I'll do whatever it takes to rebuild our relationship. The weight of her words hung in the air, and I felt a flicker of hope. But it was quickly overshadowed by doubt. Rebuilding trust takes time, Sophie. You can't expect me to just forgive and forget. I understand, she replied, desperation creeping into her tone. But I love you, Ryan. I don't want to lose you. Please let me show you that I can change. For a moment, I considered her plea. Could I really let go of the betrayal? Could I trust her again? But as I looked into her eyes, I remembered the laughter I had seen shared with Max, the intimacy that felt like a knife in my heart. I need time, I finally said, my voice steady. Time to process everything that's happened. I don't know if I can go back to the way things were. She nodded, understanding dawning on her face. I'll give you that, but please don't give up on us completely. As I left the cafe, I felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty. The conversation had opened a door, but the path ahead was still unclear. Would I be able to forgive her? Or was this the beginning of the end for us? The fallout from her betrayal lingered, and I knew I had to tread carefully. The days dragged on, and I found myself caught in a cycle of reflection and confusion. After our conversation at the cafe, I'd returned home with a mix of emotions. Sophie's words replayed in my mind, but so did the memories of laughter and trust that now felt tainted by her betrayal. My phone buzzed with messages from followers, many expressing their support. They had shared their own stories of heartbreak and loss, grateful that I had the courage to speak out. Each message was a reminder of why I had decided to confront Sophie publicly, yet it also deepened the ache in my chest. One evening, I sat down to film another video, this time focusing on self-care and healing after betrayal. It felt strange, talking to the camera about moving on while my own heart felt heavy. I wanted to be a source of inspiration, yet the reality of my situation loomed over me like a dark cloud. As I spoke about the importance of self-worth and taking time to heal, I realized that I was also speaking to myself. I needed to prioritize my own well-being, but that didn't make the decision about Sophie any easier. After I finished filming, I decided to take a break from social media. I needed to step away from the constant influx of messages and opinions, to clear my mind and focus on what truly mattered. I turned off my notifications and took a deep breath. It felt liberating yet terrifying. That evening, I found myself at the park, walking the familiar trails we used to stroll together. The crisp air bit at my skin, but it grounded me, reminding me of the simplicity of nature amid the chaos of my life. As I walked, I couldn't help but think about the decision that loomed over me. Could I truly forgive Sophie? Would it be worth the risk of reopening my heart to the possibility of pain again? I thought back to our good times, the laughter we shared, and the dreams we built together. But then the image of her laughing with Max flooded my mind, tearing at the threads of nostalgia. I stopped at a bench, sitting down to gather my thoughts. My heart raced as I realized what I needed to do. I had to confront the reality of our relationship. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about whether we could rebuild something stronger or if it was time to part ways for good. After hours of contemplation, I pulled out my phone and sent Sophie a message, "Can we meet again? I think it's time to talk about our future." Within minutes, she replied, "Yes, of course. Where and when? Let's meet at the cafe again tomorrow at noon." The next day arrived, and as I approached the cafe, my heart raced with anticipation and dread. I knew this conversation would be pivotal, and I had to be honest with myself and with her. Sophie was already there, sitting at the same table we had shared before. The moment she saw me, a mix of hope and fear washed over her face. "Hey," I said, taking a seat across from her. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The tension hung thick between us, and I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. "I've thought a lot about everything that's happened," I began. About us, about trust and betrayal. and I've come to a decision." Her eyes widened, and I could see the hope flickering within her. "What is it?" "I can't just forget what happened. Trust is fragile, and it takes time to rebuild." "But," I hesitated, my heart pounding. "I'm willing to try if you truly mean it. If you're committed to making things right." Relief washed over her face, but I quickly added, "However, I need you to understand that this won't be easy. I need you to show me, not just tell me, that you're serious about cutting ties with Max and focusing on us." "Of course, I will. I promise," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove my love to you." I nodded, but a part of me still felt cautious. "This is going to take time, Sophie. I don't expect miracles overnight. We have to rebuild, and I need to see consistent effort from you." "I understand. I'm willing to put in the work," she replied, determination lighting up her eyes. As we sat there, I felt a flicker of hope amid the lingering pain. It wouldn't be easy, and there were no guarantees, but I was willing to give it a shot. I would take my time and navigate this new path carefully, hoping that, together, we could emerge stronger from the ashes of betrayal. As we left the cafe, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The decision had been made, and now it was time to face the journey ahead, together, yet cautiously. The days following our meeting at the cafe felt different. There was a renewed energy in our interactions, but I couldn't shake the tension that lingered in the air. Sophie was determined to prove herself, and I wanted to believe her, but every time I caught her glancing at her phone, doubt crept back in. We decided to document our journey back to each other on social media, inviting our followers to witness our efforts. I hoped it would hold us accountable, but it also added pressure to our already fragile situation. Our first video was an introduction to our Healing Together series, where we shared our commitment to rebuilding trust. As we sat in front of the camera, I could see the sincerity in Sophie's eyes, and for a moment, I felt hope. But as we filmed, I caught a glimpse of her phone flashing with a message from Max. My stomach dropped. After we finished filming, I confronted her. "What's going on with Max? Are you still in contact with him?" Sophie's face paled, and I saw the panic in her eyes. "I told you I would cut ties with him. I haven't spoken to him since that day." "Then why was your phone lighting up?" I pressed, my heart racing. "It was just a message from a follower asking about fitness tips," she stammered. "I swear, I'm done with him." I wanted to believe her, but the doubt lingered like a shadow. "I need you to understand that trust isn't just about cutting ties, it's about being transparent, too. If you're still talking to him, it could ruin everything we're trying to build." "I promise, Ryan, I'm not in contact with him. I'll show you," she insisted, reaching for my hand. Her touch brought a flicker of warmth, but I still felt the weight of the uncertainty. "Let's focus on the present, then. We need to work on us, together." Over the next few days, we committed to activities that would strengthen our bond. We went for long walks, cooked healthy meals together, and even participated in yoga classes. Each moment spent together felt like a step forward, but in the back of my mind, I was still haunted by the betrayal. One afternoon, while we were preparing dinner, Sophie suggested we film a couples cooking challenge for our channel. It sounded like fun, and I agreed, hoping it would lighten the mood. As we set up the camera, I felt a sense of normalcy return. We joked and laughed as we cooked. But deep down, I was still struggling with my feelings. I couldn't shake the thought that our lives were being broadcasted while I was still grappling with so much pain. During the video, we made a delicious quinoa salad, and as I mixed the ingredients, I caught Sophie stealing glances at her phone again. My heart sank. "Are you serious?" I said, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You're doing it again?" Sophie's expression shifted from playful to defensive. "I'm just checking our followers' comments. It's part of the job." "It doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like you're hiding something," I replied, my voice sharper than intended. "Ryan, I'm trying. I'm here with you, cooking, filming, sharing this moment. Can't you see that?" she shot back, tears brimming in her eyes. I took a deep breath, realizing how tense the situation had become. "I get that, but trust is fragile. Every time I see you on your phone, it sends me back to that moment in the gym when I saw you with Max." Sophie stepped closer, desperation in her voice. "I don't want to lose you. I'm working on myself. Can you just give me a chance?" As I looked into her eyes, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I wanted to give her that chance, but the memories of betrayal were like a ghost, haunting every step we took together. "Let's take a break from filming for a bit," I suggested, needing to clear my mind. We can focus on ourselves without the pressure of sharing everything online. She nodded, wiping her tears away. Okay, I understand. That evening, as we sat on the couch together, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. We had taken steps forward, but I knew the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. Could we truly rebuild what we once had? As I wrapped my arm around her, I realized this journey would require patience and open communication. The challenge ahead was not just about healing from betrayal, but also about rediscovering the trust we had lost. It was time to face the reality of our relationship head-on. And I was ready to take that step, one day at a time. The days following our decision to take a break from filming were both a relief and a challenge. Without the pressure of creating content, I felt lighter, but the doubts about Sophie still loomed large. We spent our time focusing on each other, engaging in deep conversations and attempting to reconnect, yet I could sense the tension lingering beneath the surface. One afternoon, while we were lounging on the couch, Sophie turned to me with an idea. What if we did a video about our journey, like a "Where We Are Now" update? It could be raw and real, showing our followers the struggles we're facing together. I hesitated, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety. Are you sure? It's still a sensitive topic. What if we say something that doesn't come across right? Sophie nodded, her eyes bright with determination. That's the point. We want to be honest with our audience. They deserve to see the truth behind the highlight reels. After some deliberation, I agreed. Maybe sharing our struggles would not only help us process our feelings but also connect with others who might be going through similar situations. We set up the camera in our living room, ready to bare our souls. As we began recording, I could see the sincerity in Sophie's expression. Hey everyone, we're back with an update on our journey, she started, her voice steady. We've been through a lot recently, and we want to share where we stand right now. I jumped in, my heart racing. It hasn't been easy, and we're still working on rebuilding trust. There are days when it feels impossible, but we're committed to facing this together. Sophie looked at me, her eyes shimmering with emotion. It's hard to admit that I made a terrible mistake. I hurt Ryan, and I can't take that back. But I'm here, trying to make it right. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my own words. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild. It's fragile, and I'm learning that I need to be open about my feelings, even the uncomfortable ones. As we spoke, I could see the audience reacting in real time. Comments flooded in, with followers expressing their support and empathy. It felt good to be honest, yet it was daunting to lay our struggles bare for the world to see. Midway through the video, I glanced at Sophie, feeling the tension rising again. We've made a lot of progress, but I still find myself struggling with doubts. I need to know that you're committed to this. Sophie nodded earnestly. I am. I've cut all ties with Max. It was hard, but I know that it's necessary for us to heal. In that moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to embrace the hope she was offering. Okay, I said, feeling a little more at ease. Let's keep working on this. I want to trust you again. As we wrapped up the video, I felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. We had shared our vulnerability, and I hoped it would resonate with others. But just as we ended the recording, a notification pinged on Sophie's phone. I instinctively looked over, and my heart sank. It was a message from Max. What's that? I asked, my voice trembling. Sophie's face drained of color as she quickly tried to put her phone down. It's nothing. Just a what? You promised. I interrupted, my frustration boiling over. Ryan, please. I didn't mean to, she pleaded, but I could see the panic in her eyes. In that moment, everything we had built in the last few days felt like it was crumbling. You said you cut ties. How can I believe you when you're still in contact with him? Tears welled up in her eyes, and I could see the fear of losing me reflected in her gaze. I'm sorry. I thought I blocked him. I didn't mean to. Do you even understand how this feels? I shouted, my voice rising. Every time I think we're moving forward, something like this happens. I'm trying, Ryan, she cried, her voice cracking. I really am. I just want us to be okay. But as I stared at her, I felt the walls of doubt closing in again. Trust was slipping through my fingers like sand, and I didn't know if I had the strength to rebuild it once more. That evening, I retreated to our bedroom, my heart heavy. I felt as if I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. The video we had just filmed felt meaningless now, overshadowed by the reality of Sophie's broken promises. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I realized that the path to healing would not be straightforward. It was fraught with setbacks and moments of doubt. But deep down, I also knew I had to make a choice. Could I let go of the past and give us another chance, or would this be the breaking point? As the night wore on, I closed my eyes, praying for clarity. Whatever the outcome, I knew the journey was far from over, and the real challenge lay ahead. The aftermath of our latest video hit harder than I expected. I woke up the next morning to a flood of notifications, some supportive, others harshly critical. Our followers were divided. While many praised our honesty, others accused Sophie of being manipulative and me of being weak for even considering staying with her. The online community could be unforgiving, and it felt like we were under a microscope. As I scrolled through the comments, a knot twisted in my stomach. "How can you trust her again?" One comment read. "She clearly hasn't changed." Another follower wrote, "Ryan deserves better than this." Sophie joined me in the living room, her face pale as she saw my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, hesitantly sitting beside me. "Look at this," I said, turning my phone toward her. "They're tearing you apart in the comments." Her eyes widened as she read the vitriol. "I didn't think it would get this bad. I thought people would understand we're trying." I slammed my phone down, frustration boiling over. This isn't just about us anymore. They're invested in our lives, and they expect a perfect story. We're not giving them that. And now it feels like they're blaming us for being real. Sophie bit her lip, tears forming in her eyes. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I thought being open would help us connect with others. And now it's backfiring," I replied, feeling the weight of the situation. "What do we do? How do we move forward when everyone's watching our every move?" We spent the next few hours trying to process the backlash together, but the pressure felt suffocating. I could see Sophie's anxiety growing as she read through more comments, each one a reminder of her mistake. Finally, I suggested, maybe we should address this directly. We could post a video acknowledging the backlash and explaining our perspective. Being silent won't help us. Sophie hesitated, her brow furrowed. "But what if it backfires again? What if they hate me even more?" "They probably will," I said, my voice softening. "But we can't hide. The only way to get through this is to be transparent. We owe it to ourselves and our followers." Reluctantly, she nodded, and we began brainstorming for our next video. We decided to create a response to your comments video, addressing the criticism head-on while reaffirming our commitment to healing. As we set up the camera, I could feel the tension in the air. Sophie looked nervous, fidgeting with her hair. "What if I mess up again?" she whispered. "You won't," I reassured her, taking her hand. "Just be honest. That's all we can do." Once we started filming, I felt the weight of the world pressing down on us. "Hey everyone," Sophie began, her voice shaky. "We wanted to take a moment to address the comments on our last video. We understand that many of you are concerned about our relationship and my past mistakes." I chimed in, "It's been a tough journey, and we appreciate your support, but we also understand why some of you are upset. Trust is a fragile thing, and it's something we're working to rebuild every day." As we spoke, I saw the raw emotion in Sophie's eyes. "I know I hurt Ryan, and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to show that I can change." The comments flooded in during the video, some supportive, others critical. As we shared our thoughts, I could feel the heaviness of our situation in every word. It was a risk, but it felt necessary to clear the air. After filming, we both felt a strange mix of relief and anxiety. "Do you think that helped?" Sophie asked, wringing her hands. "I hope so," I replied, feeling uncertain. "But we're still in a delicate spot. The backlash might not stop just because we addressed it." The next few days were tumultuous. The video generated mixed responses, and our follower count fluctuated. I tried to stay focused on our healing, but the online noise was hard to ignore. Sophie's demeanor changed, too. She became more withdrawn, often retreating to her phone. I noticed she was still in contact with her followers, responding to their messages, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was an escape from our reality. One evening, as we were preparing dinner together, I decided to confront her. "Are you still talking to Max?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. Sophie looked taken aback. "No, I told you I cut ties with him. Why do you keep bringing this up?" "Because I see you slipping away. You're more focused on what people are saying online than on us." I need you here with me, not just as a partner in front of the camera, but in our reality, I said, my heart racing. I'm trying to manage everything. I feel like I'm being pulled in so many directions, she replied, her voice rising. Then let's put the phone down and focus on what's right in front of us, I urged. Sophie sighed, her shoulders slumping in defeat. You're right. I'll try harder. I don't want to lose you. In that moment, I realized the backlash wasn't just about the comments online. It was also about the cracks forming in our relationship. We were both trying to navigate a storm, and if we didn't steer the ship together, we risked sinking. As we finished cooking in silence, I hoped that we could weather this storm. But the reality was that the backlash was more than just an online phenomenon. It was a reflection of the struggles we faced every day. And I knew that if we wanted to move forward, we would need to confront these challenges together, no matter how difficult it felt. A week had passed since our last video, and the dust from the backlash was finally starting to settle. While we gained a few new supporters, I could sense that Sophie was still struggling. She seemed to carry the weight of our situation on her shoulders, and I didn't know how to help her. One evening, after a particularly draining day of filming, I suggested we take a break from social media. Let's just unplug for a weekend. We can focus on us, without the noise, I proposed, hoping to reconnect. Sophie hesitated but eventually agreed. That sounds nice. I just want to escape for a bit, she admitted. We decided to head to a nearby cabin that we used to visit before the chaos of our online lives took over. It was a place filled with memories of simpler times, hiking trails, cozy nights by the fire, and laughter echoing through the woods. As we drove there, I felt a glimmer of hope that this trip might help us find our footing again. Once we arrived, the fresh air filled my lungs, and the peaceful surroundings started to lift my spirits. We unpacked quickly and headed outside to take in the beautiful scenery. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape. Let's go for a walk, I suggested, taking her hand. We strolled along the familiar paths, the sound of leaves crunching beneath our feet creating a comforting rhythm. This feels nice, Sophie said, a genuine smile breaking through her previous tension. I've missed this, I replied, feeling a sense of normalcy return. We need to prioritize moments like these. As we walked, we talked about everything except the online world. We reminisced about our early days of blogging, the silly challenges we used to do, and how excited we felt about each new follower. The laughter came easier now, and I could feel Sophie relaxing. That night, we cooked dinner together, music playing softly in the background. We danced in the kitchen, our movements clumsy but joyful, letting the worries of the outside world fade away. For the first time in a while, I felt connected to her again. After dinner, we sat by the fire, the flames flickering against the dark sky. Can we talk about everything? Sophie asked, breaking the comfortable silence. I nodded, the seriousness of the moment creeping in. Yeah, we need to address how we've been feeling. She took a deep breath, her eyes reflecting the firelight. I feel like I'm constantly trying to fix my mistakes, but it's exhausting. I hate that I hurt you, and I hate that our followers are judging me. I don't know how to make it right. Sophie, it's not all on you, I said gently. We both have to take responsibility for how we've handled things. I've been consumed by the betrayal and the need for revenge, and that's not healthy for either of us. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I just want to be better for you, for us. I don't want to keep feeling this way. I leaned closer, taking her hands in mine. We can work through this together. It's going to take time. But we need to communicate openly and honestly. No more hiding behind the camera or the comments. Promise? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I promise, I replied, feeling the sincerity of my words. The warmth of the fire wrapped around us as we talked late into the night. We discussed our dreams, our fears, and what we wanted from our relationship moving forward. It felt cathartic, like we were peeling away the layers of hurt to get to the core of what truly mattered. As we settled into bed that night, I felt a sense of hope washing over me. We had a long way to go, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like we were on the right path. The turning point was here, and together, we would navigate whatever came next. In the days that followed, we stayed committed to our break from social media, focusing on each other. We hiked, cooked, and explored, rediscovering the joy of simply being together without the pressures of our online personas. But deep down, I knew that once we returned, we would have to face the reality of our situation again. The world outside was waiting, and our journey was far from over. The question lingered in the air. Would our newfound connection be enough to withstand the scrutiny that awaited us? As our weekend retreat came to an end, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. We had made significant strides in reconnecting, but the reality of our online lives loomed over us like a dark cloud. On the drive back home, I glanced at Sophie, who was staring out the window, lost in thought. "Hey," I said gently, breaking the silence. "You okay?" She turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "I just hope we can keep this momentum going when we get back. I don't want to slip back into old patterns." "Me neither," I replied, determination settling in. "But we have to be mindful. It's easy to fall back into the grind." When we arrived home, the familiar hum of our social media accounts greeted us. Notifications were buzzing, and I felt a knot in my stomach as I realized the pressure was back. Sophie took a deep breath and picked up her phone, scrolling through messages while I tried to shake off the tension. "Let's take it slow," I suggested. "We can ease back into posting, but maybe not as frequently?" "Yeah, that sounds good," she agreed, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. That evening, we sat down to film a new video, a casual update about our weekend getaway. As we turned on the camera, I could sense Sophie's anxiety creeping back. She flashed a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and I knew the pressure was mounting. "Hey, everyone, we're back from a much-needed retreat," I began, trying to keep the energy upbeat. "We had an amazing time reconnecting and focusing on our relationship." Sophie chimed in, her voice shaky. "It was really nice to step away from everything and just be together. We talked a lot about how to move forward." As we spoke, I felt the tension in the air. The comments from our last video were still fresh in our minds. And I could tell Sophie was worried about how our followers would perceive us now. It wasn't long before she started getting distracted by her phone notifications. Halfway through filming, she glanced at her screen and sighed. "I can't believe the comments are still coming in. People are still so harsh." "Focus on us," I urged gently, but I could see her resolve weakening. After filming, we uploaded the video and watched as the views climbed. Almost immediately, the notifications flooded in, and I felt the familiar tension rise again. Sophie's phone buzzed incessantly, and I could see her scrolling through comments, her expression shifting from hope to disappointment. "I can't believe they're still criticizing me," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I thought we had made progress." I tried to comfort her, but deep down, I felt my own frustrations bubbling up. "Sophie, we can't control how they react. We have to focus on our journey, not theirs." The next few days were a roller coaster. While some fans expressed support, others continued to attack Sophie, calling her names and questioning her sincerity. I watched her spiral as she engaged with the comments, trying to defend herself, only to face more backlash. One evening, as we prepared dinner, I decided to confront the issue head-on. "Sophie, you need to step away from the comments. It's consuming you," I said firmly. "But I want to make things right," she replied, frustration spilling over. "I need them to see that I'm changing." "That's not how it works. You can't prove yourself to everyone online," I argued. "You have to prove it to yourself first." She paused, visibly shaken. "I just feel like I'm constantly under a microscope. It's exhausting." I nodded, understanding her pain. "It's supposed to be about us, but we're letting them dictate our emotions. Let's take a break from the comments for a while." Reluctantly, she agreed, but the damage was done. It wasn't long before the strain of our online presence began to seep back into our daily lives. I noticed Sophie pulling away again, her laughter fading as she retreated into her phone, checking for notifications in the middle of our conversations. One night, as we sat on the couch, I glanced over and saw her scrolling again. "Sophie, can we talk?" I asked, my heart heavy. She looked up, guilt etched across her face. "I'm sorry. Enough with the excuses," I interrupted, feeling frustration boiling over. "You promised me you'd focus on us. But it seems like you're more invested in what people are saying online than in our relationship." Her expression turned defensive. "I'm trying, but it's hard when everyone is throwing insults at me. And I'm trying too," I shot back. "We're in this together, but you're pulling away every time someone says something negative." We sat in silence, the tension thick between us. I could see the tears forming in her eyes, and I realized how much pressure we were both under. "I don't want to fight," she finally said, her voice trembling. "I just want to make things right." "Then let's start by making things right between us," I replied softly. "We need to put our relationship first. The comments don't define who we are. That night, I stayed up late thinking about how to break the cycle. It was clear that the online world was a toxic influence, pulling us apart when we needed to be united. The following day, I made a decision. I would address our followers in a new video, laying bare the struggles we were facing, not just the betrayal, but the relentless pressure of online scrutiny. If we were going to navigate this, we needed to do it together, and maybe, just maybe, our honesty would resonate with them. As I sat down with Sophie later that day, I shared my plan. I think we need to be completely transparent about our journey. Let them know we're struggling, but that we're committed to working through it together. She looked hesitant but eventually nodded. Okay, if it means we can rebuild what we've lost, I'm in. We prepared to film, knowing that this time, we were not just exposing our relationship to the world. We were reclaiming our narrative. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this would be another turning point, one that could either strengthen our bond or shatter it completely. The stakes were high, and we were both terrified of what lay ahead. The camera was rolling, and the atmosphere felt electric with tension. Sophie and I sat side by side, a palpable sense of vulnerability hanging in the air. This wasn't just another video, it was a confession, an unveiling of the cracks in our seemingly perfect life. Hey, everyone, I started, trying to project calmness despite my racing heart. Today, we want to share something real with you. It's not just about our journey to healthy living but the challenges we've faced behind the scenes. Sophie took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. We've always aimed to be transparent with you, but there's something we haven't fully addressed, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Things have been really tough for us lately. I glanced at her, seeing the vulnerability in her expression. It was a side I hadn't witnessed in a while, and it reminded me of the woman I fell in love with. We've been dealing with the fallout from my infidelity, I continued, feeling the weight of those words. And it's affected us more than we'd like to admit. The comments section had been a minefield, and I could feel the mixed reactions we were bound to receive. But this was necessary for us and for our followers. Sophie nodded, her resolve strengthening. I've made mistakes, and I'm deeply sorry for that. I know I hurt Ryan, and I hurt myself in the process. The pressure of being in the spotlight has been overwhelming. As we spoke, I noticed the chat live streaming alongside the video began to light up with mixed reactions. Some comments expressed support and understanding, while others were quick to criticize and attack. This isn't easy for us, I said, my voice steady. We've been trying to navigate our relationship while facing judgment from people we don't even know. But we're committed to working through this together. Sophie added, we know it's not just about our brand. It's about our marriage, our love, and the real issues that come with it. We're here to take ownership of our mistakes and rebuild trust. I could see the viewers beginning to engage more positively, a wave of empathy washing over the chat. We appreciate those of you who've supported us through this. It means the world to us, I said, feeling a sense of relief as we poured our hearts out. After filming, we sat in silence for a moment, processing what we had just shared. I could feel the weight lifting, even if just a little. Do you think we did the right thing? Sophie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, knowing that this was a crucial step toward healing. Yeah, it feels good to finally be honest. As we reviewed the comments after the video went live, I was surprised to see a significant shift in the tone. Supportive messages flooded in, people sharing their own struggles with relationships and the pressure of public life. One comment stood out, thank you for being real. It's comforting to know we're not alone in facing challenges. Sophie smiled softly, a flicker of hope sparking in her eyes. Maybe we can turn this around, she said, her voice gaining strength. But just as I began to feel optimistic, a familiar unease crept back in. The online world was unpredictable, and I wondered how long this wave of support would last. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. As I lay in bed, I replayed the video in my mind. Had we truly been transparent enough? Were we prepared for the backlash that might come? Sophie stirred beside me, sensing my restlessness. What's wrong? She asked, her voice soft. I just can't help but think about what's next, I admitted. We've opened up a lot, but this could backfire. She reached for my hand, intertwining her fingers with mine. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. We have to stay strong. As I looked into her eyes, I felt a surge of determination. You're right. We've come this far, we can't let fear dictate our journey. The next day, we woke up to an influx of notifications. Our video had gone viral. While the initial wave of support was overwhelming, the negativity wasn't far behind. People were quick to point fingers, digging into our past mistakes, and I felt my heart sink as the comments grew more accusatory. "Sophie, look at this," I said, my voice tinged with frustration as I scrolled through the comments. "They're dragging you through the mud again." She sighed, her expression shifting from hope to despair. "I thought we were making progress." "We are, but it's going to take time," I reassured her. "We just have to stay focused on each other." As the days went by, we committed to staying off social media for a bit. We needed time to breathe and focus on our relationship away from the noise. But the decision didn't come without its own challenges. The temptation to check our accounts was strong, and Sophie struggled with the urge to defend herself against the trolls. One night, after a particularly exhausting day, we sat down together, and I felt compelled to take action. "Let's create a new video, not about us, but about supporting others facing similar issues," I suggested. "Like a community piece?" Sophie asked, her interest piqued. "Exactly. We can share stories, offer advice, and create a safe space for others who are struggling," I replied, feeling a surge of purpose. Sophie's eyes lit up, and I could see the excitement building. "That's a great idea. It'll help us focus on the positive and remind us of why we started this journey." We began brainstorming ideas, our enthusiasm rekindling the spark between us. It felt like we were finally moving in the right direction, not just for our followers, but for ourselves. But as we delved deeper into planning, I couldn't shake the nagging fear that our past would always linger, haunting our attempts at rebuilding. The weight of our mistakes was heavy, but maybe, just maybe, we could turn our struggles into something meaningful. The excitement from our new video idea filled the air. But as we began filming, I could sense a storm brewing just beneath the surface. It was a new day, and Sophie and I were both eager to shift our focus away from the negativity and toward uplifting content. But the anxiety was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We decided to film in the park, a serene backdrop filled with green trees and soft sunlight filtering through the leaves. It was the perfect setting for our message of hope and resilience. As we set up the camera, I felt a surge of optimism. Maybe this would be the turning point we desperately needed. "Ready?" Sophie asked, her smile brightening the moment. "Always," I replied, trying to match her enthusiasm. We began discussing the importance of community support, sharing our experiences while inviting others to do the same. As we filmed, I noticed Sophie's demeanor shift slightly. She became more reserved, her laughter less spontaneous. I couldn't help but wonder if the weight of our situation was catching up with her. I was determined to keep the momentum going, but I knew we needed to address the elephant in the room. After filming, I suggested we take a break. "Let's grab some coffee and talk," I said, hoping to draw her out of her shell. As we settled onto a bench with our drinks, I looked at her, my heart heavy with concern. "Sophie, are you okay? You seemed a little off during the shoot." She sighed, staring down at her cup. I'm worried about the comments. They're getting to me more than I thought they would." "I know it's hard," I replied, reaching for her hand. "But we're doing this for us and for others who need to hear our story. We can't let the negativity win." She nodded, but the sadness in her eyes lingered. "I keep thinking about how I let things spiral out of control. I hate that I put us in this position. It's okay to feel that way, but remember, we're in this together now. We can't change the past, but we can shape our future," I reassured her, squeezing her hand. As we finished our coffee, I noticed a familiar face approaching us, Max. My stomach knotted. I hadn't seen him since the confrontation, and I was taken aback by his presence. "Hey, I was just passing by," he said, trying to sound casual, but I could sense the tension. "I wanted to check on you guys." Sophie's face paled slightly, and I could feel the temperature drop. "We're okay, thanks," I said, trying to maintain composure. "Look, I know things have been rocky," Max continued, his eyes darting between us. "I never intended to hurt anyone. Save it," I interrupted, feeling a surge of anger. "You've already caused enough damage." Sophie glanced at me, a mix of concern and surprise on her face. I knew she didn't want a confrontation, but the sight of him made my blood boil. "I'm really sorry," Max said, looking genuinely remorseful. "I messed up. I didn't mean for it to get this far." "Then why did you?" I shot back, unable to hold back my frustration. You had to know what you were doing was wrong. He opened his mouth to respond. But Sophie interjected. Can we just move on? This isn't helping anything. I could see the turmoil in her expression, and for a moment, I hesitated. Maybe Max was genuinely regretful, but I didn't want to let him off the hook so easily. Look, I don't want to be here arguing, I finally said, taking a deep breath. Just know that we're trying to rebuild our lives. Stay out of it. Max nodded slowly, stepping back. I get it. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I hope you both find a way to heal. As he walked away, I felt a mix of relief and frustration. Why did you let him talk to you? I turned to Sophie, my voice low but firm. I didn't want to fight, Ryan, she replied, her eyes pleading. We need to focus on us, not him. I took a moment to process her words. She was right, but the anger still simmered beneath the surface. I just can't shake the feeling that he's still a part of this. I know, but we can't let him dictate our lives anymore, she said, her voice steadying. We have to rise above it. We spent the rest of the day discussing our next video and focusing on how we could use our platform for good. But the tension from the encounter lingered, casting a shadow over our progress. That evening, as we returned home, I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Our journey was far from over, and I knew we still had a long way to go before healing could truly begin. But amid the chaos, I couldn't ignore the flicker of hope. We were committed to each other. And despite the challenges, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Together, we could face whatever storms lay ahead. The next day, I woke up with a sense of determination. I had spent the night crafting the script for the video that would change everything. I wanted to make sure we conveyed our message clearly, focusing on the theme of cleansing from toxic relationships, while subtly including my own narrative of betrayal. It felt like a tightrope walk, balancing authenticity with the need to protect myself. Sophie was still in bed when I slipped out to prepare for the shoot. I wanted everything to be perfect, hoping that a well-produced video would help us regain some of our lost momentum. As I brewed coffee and set up the camera equipment in our living room, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. When Sophie finally emerged, her eyes were still heavy with sleep. Hey, what's the plan for today? She asked, stretching as she made her way to the kitchen. Big day, I replied, trying to keep my tone light. We're filming the video on toxic relationships. I really want to make it impactful. She nodded, but I could see a hint of anxiety flicker across her face. Right, do you think we should mention our situation? I hesitated. I think we should touch on it without going into too much detail. We want to focus on healing, but we can't ignore the elephant in the room. Okay, she said, a nervous smile appearing. Let's do it. As we set up, I could feel the tension hanging between us like a thick fog. I wanted to be supportive, but the memories of betrayal lingered just beneath the surface. I could see her trying to push through her own discomfort, and I admired her strength. Once everything was ready, I flipped the camera on and took a deep breath. Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into the importance of cleansing from toxic relationships, I began, trying to inject energy into my voice. Sophie chimed in, her smile brightening the room. It's something we all experience at different points in our lives. And today, we want to share some tips on how to recognize those toxic patterns and break free. As we spoke, I tried to keep my focus on the broader message. We shared stories of people overcoming difficult relationships, but in the back of my mind, I couldn't help but think about my own situation. Each time Sophie spoke about healing and moving forward, I felt a mix of pride and pain. Halfway through the shoot, I felt the weight of my truth pressing down on me. I needed to weave it into the narrative without it overshadowing the positive message. I glanced at Sophie, who seemed genuinely engaged, and I took a leap. There's a part of healing that involves facing uncomfortable truths, I said, my voice steady but serious. Sometimes, the ones we trust can hurt us the most. Sophie's expression shifted slightly, and I could see the realization dawn on her. This was it, the moment I had been building toward. That's true, she responded, her voice a little shaky. It's crucial to acknowledge the pain caused by those we let into our lives. I nodded, feeling a surge of confidence. For me, learning about toxic relationships has been a journey, one that I didn't expect to be a part of until recently. Betrayal can feel like a knife in the back, but it's a chance to reclaim your power. Sophie's eyes widened, and I could see her struggling to maintain her composure. Ryan, but I pushed forward. And that's why we're here, sharing our journey. It's about lifting each other up and creating a community where we can thrive. Quote. As the video continued, I felt a mixture of catharsis and tension. I wanted to expose my pain without letting it consume us. It was a tightrope act, and I hoped the viewers would understand the deeper message beneath the surface. Finally, we wrapped up the shoot, and I turned off the camera. The silence that followed felt heavy. How do you think it went? I asked, trying to gauge her reaction. Sophie took a deep breath. I think it was powerful. But I could feel the tension when you talked about betrayal. Are you sure you're ready to share that part? I nodded, feeling a sense of resolve. I had to be. This isn't just about us anymore, it's about everyone out there who's experienced something similar. They deserve to see the real struggle behind the facade. Sophie looked at me, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. You're right, but just remember, we're in this together. You don't have to carry the weight alone. As the day wore on, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We had created something meaningful. And despite the underlying tensions, it felt like a step toward healing. But as I edited the video later that evening, I knew there was still a long road ahead. And with the click of a button, I would share our story with the world, exposing the truth while seeking solace in the process. The video would be a turning point, not just for our followers but for Sophie and me as well. It was time to embrace the healing, no matter how messy it might get. The day after we uploaded the video, I woke up with a mix of anticipation and dread. I knew we had shared something powerful, but I was also acutely aware of the storm that could follow. As I scrolled through social media, the notifications flooded in, and my heart raced. Initially, the comments were supportive. Our followers seemed to resonate with the message, praising our courage for tackling the topic of toxic relationships. But as the day wore on, I noticed a shift. Whispers of doubt began to creep in, and the comment section was soon littered with harsh criticisms. How can Ryan talk about betrayal when he's the one spilling secrets? One commenter wrote. Looks like someone is just trying to get views, another added, questioning our integrity. My stomach twisted. I had anticipated some backlash, but the intensity of the negativity caught me off guard. It felt like a slap in the face, and I struggled to keep my composure as I read through the comments. Sophie entered the room, her expression strained. Hey, have you seen the comments? It's brutal out there, she said, her voice wavering. Yeah, I just started reading them, I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. People are reacting to the betrayal angle. Maybe we should have kept that part out, she suggested, biting her lip. It feels like it's overshadowing the message. I shook my head, frustration bubbling up. But it's part of our truth, Sophie. We can't hide from that. We wanted to be real with our audience. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. I know, but the backlash, it's not just about us anymore. It feels like people are taking sides. That realization hit me hard. The truth was, this video had thrust us into the public eye in a way I hadn't fully grasped. The very community we had nurtured was now dividing over our personal drama, and I felt like a fool for not anticipating it. As the day progressed, I decided to respond to some of the more constructive criticisms. I wanted to clarify our intentions and remind our followers that healing often comes with discomfort. I typed out a lengthy message, addressing the backlash and reaffirming our commitment to authenticity. But the comments only grew harsher. Some people called me a clout chaser, and others labeled Sophie as fake. The words stung, each one a reminder of how fragile our carefully crafted image had become. By the evening, I felt emotionally drained. I was ready to pack it all in and turn off my phone, but I knew I couldn't hide. Not now. Sophie approached me, concern etched on her face. Ryan, maybe we should take a break from posting for a while? Let things cool down? No, I said firmly. We can't run away from this. If we do, it'll only fuel the fire. We need to stand our ground. With a deep breath, I pulled up our social media accounts and made a post addressing the backlash head on. We're not perfect, and we're not here to pretend we are. We're sharing our journey, the good and the bad, and that includes our mistakes. If that's not for you, we understand. But we're committed to being authentic. Once I hit post, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But it was quickly replaced by anxiety. Would this help, or would it only make things worse? The comments rolled in again, and while some were supportive, many continued to lash out. I braced myself for the next wave of negativity, but there was also a growing chorus of supporters who appreciated our honesty. Thank you for being real, one person wrote. We all make mistakes. It's refreshing to see someone own up to it. The mixed responses kept coming, and slowly, I realized that the backlash wasn't just an attack. It was part of the process. This was messy, and real life rarely came with a neat bow. Later that night, I sat down with Sophie, and we talked through everything. "I'm sorry if I made this harder for you," I said, feeling the weight of my words. But I couldn't keep quiet. It's not just about our relationship, it's about everyone out there who feels alone in their struggles. Sophie nodded, her expression softening. "I understand, and I'm proud of you for standing up for what you believe in. But let's make sure we're looking out for each other through all of this." As we settled into bed that night, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. We were still together, navigating this storm hand in hand. The backlash may have been intense, but it had also brought us closer in a strange way. Tomorrow would be another day, and we would continue to share our story, come what may. I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the truth had a way of rising to the surface. No matter how deep it was buried. The following days felt like a whirlwind. The backlash continued, but amidst the chaos, something shifted. Our followers, initially divided, began to rally around us, sharing their own stories of betrayal and healing. It was as if our video had opened the floodgates, allowing others to voice their struggles. I felt a sense of solidarity building within our community, and it gave me hope. One afternoon, as I sat in my office reviewing comments, I noticed a direct message from a follower named Mia. She had a sizable following herself and was known for sharing her journey through toxic relationships. Her message read, "Ryan, I wanted to thank you for your honesty in your recent video. I've been through something similar, and your story gave me the courage to speak out. I'd love to collaborate and share our experiences." Her words hit me hard. This was what I had hoped for when we decided to be open about our struggles. I quickly responded, excited about the possibility of connecting with someone who truly understood. We agreed to set up a video call to discuss how we could work together. The next day, as I prepared for the call, I felt a mix of nerves and anticipation. Collaborating with someone who had lived through similar challenges felt like a turning point. When the video call started, Mia's warmth and enthusiasm instantly put me at ease. "Ryan, it's great to finally meet you. I've followed your journey for a while, and your honesty really inspired me," she said, her smile brightening the screen. "Thanks, Mia. It's refreshing to connect with someone who gets it. I think our stories could really resonate with people," I replied. We spent the next hour brainstorming ideas. Mia suggested a joint video where we could both share our experiences, focusing not only on betrayal but also on the healing process. It was a great idea, and I could feel my excitement building. This was the kind of content I wanted to create, real conversations about real struggles. As we wrapped up our call, Mia mentioned a workshop she was hosting on overcoming toxic relationships. "I'd love for you to join. It's a small group, but we're all in the same boat, trying to support one another. It could be a great way to connect with more people," she said. I hesitated for a moment. I appreciate the invite, but I'm not sure I'm ready to face more criticism. What if people take my presence there the wrong way? Mia nodded, understanding. "I get it, but it's not about them, it's about your journey. You'll be with people who understand, and it could help you find your footing again." Her words resonated with me. Maybe this was the opportunity I needed to embrace my own healing process while also helping others. I decided to take the leap and agreed to join the workshop. As the days passed, I found myself looking forward to it. The excitement of collaborating with Mia and meeting others who shared similar experiences gave me a renewed sense of purpose. I began preparing for our joint video, outlining our discussion points and focusing on how we could share our stories authentically. The night before the workshop, I couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety. I felt exposed, stepping into a space where vulnerability was expected. But deep down, I knew it was the right choice. This was part of my healing, and if I could help even one person feel less alone, it would be worth it. The day of the workshop arrived, and as I walked into the cozy venue, I was greeted by a warm atmosphere filled with friendly faces. Mia introduced me to the group, and as I looked around, I saw a mix of emotions on everyone's faces: pain, hope, and determination. We spent the afternoon sharing our stories, listening to one another, and supporting each other in a way I hadn't experienced before. It was cathartic, and I felt the weight of my struggles begin to lift. With every shared story, I realized that vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness. By the end of the workshop, I felt a profound sense of connection with everyone there. We weren't just sharing stories, we were building a community, a safe space where healing was possible. As I exchanged contact information with several participants, I knew I had found a new support system. Driving home that evening, I reflected on how far I'd come in such a short time. The backlash and negativity hadn't disappeared, but they no longer felt insurmountable. I had faced my fears, connected with others, and reclaimed my narrative. And with Mia's collaboration on the horizon, I felt hopeful for what lay ahead. Together, we would not only share our journeys but also empower others to embrace their truths. The road to healing was long, but I was ready to walk it, one step at a time.